Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Chris, this is my shop partner Oots, and in this video I'm going to show you how to build a really cool Japanese style bookshelf. It has some awesome hand-cut joinery and it's going to be a great project. But before I get started, I need some lumber, so I'm going to make you a little bit jealous and take you for a field trip down to my local hardwood dealer. It's going to be awesome, this place is really cool, you're in for a treat. Let's get started. So I head over to Johnson's Workbench in Charlotte, Michigan, where I find this stack of beautiful dense hardwood called jatoba. It's 2 inches thick, or 8/4 in lumberyard lingo, and it's the perfect length and width for the top and 2 bottom shelves. I also find some really nice 4/4 white oak that I'm going to use for the rest of the project. I need all these boards to be wide enough because along with not wanting any metal fasteners used, the client also didn't want any glue used for this project. Once I have all my pieces picked out, I'll take them over to their milling department. I still don't have a joiner or planer at home, but that's no problem because Johnson's can do this all for me for really cheap and quickly. And it's actually really fun watching them work with these serious machines. They start by running the rough lumber through giant planers that plane both sides at once. Then they'll rip one edge flat and straight, and then they'll finish the board on this giant combo planer belt sander. They popped open the door of the combo machine to show me the giant helical cutter head. This thing was really impressive. A pass on each side and my boards are ready to go. Now back at the shop, it's time to get building this bookshelf. I started by laying out and cutting all my individual pieces to size. Like I mentioned before, the client wanted something with a traditional Japanese feel, and he wanted it constructed without any kind of metal fasteners or glue, but just using traditional joinery. Once all of my pieces are cut to length and width, I'll start working on the sides. I thought it'd be cool to have the sides start as a solid piece of wood for the bottom 2 shelves and then split into 2 for the rest of the shelves. So I'm making the long cuts I need for this on the bandsaw. Then I'll take my piece over to the workbench where I'll use my Japanese ryoba saw, a fret saw, and a chisel to get the shape I'm at. If you're interested in the tools that I use, I left a link down in the description to my website where I've listed all my favorite tools. Also, if you want to build this bookshelf yourself, I have plans available that you can check out here at the top of the screen, as well as down in the description. I'll mark a radius along the corner, and since this is a tight spot, I think the chisel is going to be the best tool for the job. Next, I will take a number 5 jack plane and card scraper to smooth all the edges. The card scraper is a great tool that I think is way underappreciated and underused. It's great at getting into corners and tight spots where planes cannot, and if properly sharpened, it'll leave an incredible surface behind. Now I'll move on to cutting the many mortises for the through tenons. I start by removing most of the waste with a bit and brace, then chopping the rest out with a chisel. I laid these mortises out with a marking knife and a marking gauge to give myself an actual knife wall. After I chop all but the last 1/16 of an inch of waste away, will I then drop my chisel into the knife wall for that final clean cut. I also just chop down about halfway from each side. That way I don't risk blowing out one side or the other. Next I will cut the tenon that will mate with the feet. I clamp a scrap piece of wood for a straight edge and use a crosscut saw to cut down the depth. Then I will chop out a really deep knife wall for my shoulder plane to register in. I'll use my shoulder plane first because its blade goes all the way to the edges of the plane. Then I'll use a regular plane to flatten the entire tenon. There are many different tools and methods you can use to do this task and other tasks that I'm doing for this project. So if you ever decide to do something like this and you don't have the same tool I do or aren't good at a certain technique, just don't let that get you down and know that there's many different ways to do the same thing. Next, using the Nicholson side of my workbench, I'll secure one of the two bottom shelves using the crochet and hold fast and cut out its single wide through tenon. Hey, if you liked this video and you haven't already, please think about subscribing to the channel and hitting that bell icon. That way you will be notified when I release new videos. Also, be sure to ask any questions down in the comments section and let me know what you think about this project. I really like to hear from you guys. For the upper oak shelves, I'm going to be cutting double tenons that will fit nicely into the split sides. Here I use my Japanese ryoba saw and a fret saw. A tip that I use to cut straight with a handsaw is to kind of seesaw back and forth, following your line down one face and then the other before cutting the middle out. Before I move on, I just want to thank Johnson's Workbench for sponsoring this video. I'm really lucky to live so close and be able to partner with such an amazing woodworking resource like this. Johnson's is the oldest lumber company in the state of Michigan and has remained a family business throughout 4 generations and over 100 years of operation, which I think is super cool in this day and age. They have over 100 species of domestic and exotic lumber, a whole warehouse full of specialty plywoods, an awesome tool room, and as you saw earlier, they can handle any milling operation you want. There's a link to their website down in the description, so be sure to go visit them, or if you live a long ways away, you can give them a call and they'll ship all over the world. Now back at my project, I'll use my bandsaw to cut out the tusks or keys or wedges, whatever you want to call them, for my shelves. I cut these out now so that I can use them to lay out their holes on the through tenons of each shelf. I dry assemble a shelf into the side piece to make my layout, then I'll transfer those layouts to all the other shelves. Once I have my layouts, I drill as much waste away as possible and then chop the rest with a chisel. I thought I could give this piece that Japanese feel by adding some large chamfers to the bottoms of the shelves and top. I secured the piece to my bench top and chopped away the bulk of the waste with the chisel, then finished to my lines with a number 6 hand plane. Now I'll start working on the feet. I cut the shape out on the bandsaw, then chop out the mortises using the same bit and brace and chisel method as before. Then I'll drill 3 holes for draw boring and then cut away some slots that the wedges in the bottom shelf will fit into. I experimented with this design detail by lowering the bottom shelf so that the wedges would need to recess into the feet like this. I do think this looks really cool, but I would not recommend trying this. By removing the material, I weaken that side of the mortise and risk cracking the piece with the force of draw boring. I took my time and was really careful, but I could tell this was risky. So I changed the plans to not include this feature by simply raising the shelf up slightly so that the wedges will not interfere with the foot. After dry fitting the foot to the side, I mark and drill the offset draw bore holes. Then I attach the foot and drive in the 3 dowels. I took a heavy-duty pencil sharpener and tapered one end of the dowels to help them ramp through those offset holes. If you want to learn more about the draw boring technique, I made a specific video on the subject, so you can check that out by clicking the link here. Then I'll just cut and plane the dowels flush. The tops of the side pieces get a small hole drilled in them, and then the saw kerf cut to that hole. This is where I will drive a wedge in from the top to attach the top. The holes will just help prevent the wedges from causing splits and cracks in the side piece. Then I will cut the angled mortises into the top. These mortises are narrow on the bottom side and flare out to the top to allow for wedges. I have another video covering that joint as well, and you can find that here. Now with all my pieces cut, I can start assembling the bookshelf. I lay one side on some blocks and start dropping in the shelves. Then I can bring the other side over and gently tap it into place, making any adjustments for overly tight spots. Then I sit the bookshelf on the ground and put in all the wedges, being careful not to over tighten to break anything. You can also see here how those bottom wedges recess into the foot piece. Now I'm going to make some wedges for the top. The angles and exact measurements for these and everything else on this bookshelf can be found in those plans. Again, there's a link to that down in the description. Then I'll install the top and tap it home with a mallet. After the top is seated, I will gently tap in the wedges, being very careful to only tap them until the gaps disappear. Because of the direction of these wedges in relation to the grain direction, you have a risk of splitting the top if you keep driving the wedges in deeper than they need to be. Then again, I just cut the excess flush with the pole saw and plane smooth. The client wanted an all-natural organic finish on this piece, so he went with Allback's organic raw linseed oil mixed with pure gum spirits of turpentine. The gum spirits of turpentine are essentially a solvent derived from distilling pine tar and sap. We added to the raw linseed oil to help speed up the drying time a little bit. And I was surprised at how much I actually liked this finish. It smelled really nice, kind of like pine saw, and resulted in a really deep, rich finish.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the video, guys. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching. If you liked the video, click that subscribe button, click the like button, ask any questions in the comments. I'll make sure to get back to you. And I guess we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Have a good one.